The stretch from 50 to 60 is the most financially consequential 10 years of your whole existence, and the majority of people spend it executing the incorrect things with remarkable consistency. Here is what nobody reveals to you about that window. The mathematics does not merely reward individuals who began early, it penalizes individuals who botch the final approach at a magnitude that savings rate by itself cannot repair. Today, I am walking you through precisely why your 50s represent the moment the entire story either comes together or collapses. And I am going to demonstrate the specific mechanisms, not cliches, not generic suggestions, the actual levers that distinguish the people who retire comfortably from the ones who end up quietly spiraling at 68. The median retirement savings for Americans aged 55 to 64 is a generous $85,000. That is not a misprint, not average, median, the figure that represents the individual in the precise center of the distribution. Meanwhile, the sum Americans consider they require for a comfortable retirement in 2025 is $1.26 million. So, the typical individual within a decade of retirement possesses roughly 1/7 of what they believe they require. And most of them are still assuming the issue is that they did not begin soon enough. That is the incorrect diagnosis. And an incorrect diagnosis produces the incorrect treatment. I have spent the previous decade operating my own business, surrounded by accountants and tax attorneys who handle people's finances every single day. I have multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars invested personally. And what I have discovered from the tedious documents, the SEC filings, the actual actuarial tables, is that the 50s are not a decade of catching up. They are a decade of not destroying what you already possess. That distinction sounds subtle. It is not. By the way, I constructed a free early retirement calculator because most online versions are mathematically flawed. It uses BlackRock and Vanguard logic to reveal the specific vulnerable points in your plan. And I only request your email to deliver the report so I do not retain any of your financial data. Link is in the description. Here is the central analogy I want you to carry in your mind for the next 20 minutes. An airplane lifting off requires a minimum runway distance to achieve the velocity needed for flight. Too brief a runway and the physics do not care about your aspirations. You simply do not clear the trees at the boundary. Your 50s are that runway. Everything prior was constructing the plane. Everything subsequent depends on whether you actually become airborne. The decisions executed between 50 and 60 determine your takeoff velocity. And here's the reality nobody states aloud. You can shorten your own runway with completely legal, financially conventional, deeply foolish decisions. Shorten the runway and you do not clear the trees. We will revisit that. In a few minutes, I am going to reveal the single most counterintuitive danger to your retirement. A risk that has nothing to do with how much you accumulated and everything to do with calendar luck. But first, here is why the savings landscape is even more fractured than you imagine. Over half of American households, 54%, indicate having no dedicated retirement savings whatsoever, according to the Federal Reserve Survey of Consumer Finances. Which means the instant you even possess something saved, you are already ahead of the bulk of the country. That sounds like positive news. It is not positive news, it just means the crisis is larger than the media is prepared to state plainly. Here is the figure that genuinely counts. Vanguard's own data for 401k plans reveals Americans aged 55 to 64 carry an average balance of $271,319, but a median of only $95,942. Average versus median, two drastically different portraits of reality. The average is distorted by people with $2 million at the top. The median tells you what the individual sitting in the middle of the room actually possesses, $95,000, with 1 to 15 years remaining before they ceased working. You think the issue is that people did not save enough? The genuine issue is that most people do not understand what they actually possess, what they actually require, or what the gap actually resembles in practical terms on the ground. The arithmetic is not theoretical. The average American household expends $77,280 every single year. If you possess $95,000 saved and you retire at 65, Elementary arithmetic tells you that money vanishes in approximately 14 months, and that is before healthcare. Fidelity's 2025 retiree healthcare cost estimate discloses that a 65-year-old retiring this year can anticipate spending an average of $172,500 in healthcare and medical expenses throughout retirement. The average American, meanwhile, projects those costs will be around $75,000, under half of Fidelity's calculation. When Fidelity initially started monitoring these figures back in 2002, the estimate was $80,000. We have observed a 115% surge in just over 2 decades, and this is where it becomes truly fascinating. 1 in 5 Americans say they have never contemplated healthcare needs during retirement, and among Generation X, that figure climbs to 1 in 4. These are not individuals who are careless. These are individuals who are hopeful in a manner that the data does not justify. They are constructing a financial plan with a massive void in the center of it. And the void is the magnitude of a new automobile every 4 years for 20 years. Fidelity's estimate does not even encompass long-term care expenses. The $172,000 that is merely the Medicare bills, the copays, the prescriptions, nursing home, memory care, physical therapy from the things that deteriorate when you are 82. Those are supplementary. 69% of people reaching 65 today will require some form of long-term care during their lifetime. So, we are discussing a cost that the majority of individuals will encounter, that practically nobody has prepared for, that the primary estimate does not encompass. A friend of mine, I will not mention his name, observed his father retire at 62 in reasonable financial condition. The figure on paper appeared adequate. Then his father suffered a minor stroke at 71. Not devastating, but sufficient to necessitate assisted living. The family was not equipped. His mother had to sell the residence. His father lived another 11 years. The runway they assumed they had was not the runway they actually had. Now, here is the encouraging news concealed in all of this. If you are in your 50s, and particularly your early 50s, there is a specific mechanism the government established that most people actively disregard. When you reach your 50s, you become qualified to make larger contributions toward your retirement accounts. These are called catch-up contributions. If you contribute the annual limit of $3,500 plus your catch-up contribution of $7,500, that is a total of $31,000 in tax-advantaged money you could be channeling toward retirement each year. As of 2025, workers aged 60 to 63 can contribute an extra $11,250 to their 401k each year through a new enhanced catch-up provision. So at 60 to 63, we are discussing a possible annual contribution of $3,750. All tax-advantaged. Most people are unaware this exists, but now you might wonder, is that truly going to shift the needle that much? Let me provide you an answer that is not ambiguous. If you begin making those maximum catch-up contributions at $31,000 a year, and you generate a 7% average annual return over 15 years, that is approximately $800,000 from contributions and growth alone. $800,000 for executing the most mundane, legal government-sanctioned thing imaginable. No PICs, no crypto, no leveraged ETFs. Only 15% of people age 55 to 64 even maintain a health savings account. And of that group, more than half are unaware it can be utilized as a retirement savings instrument. The catch-up contribution plus HSA combination is the most potent 1-2 combination available to someone in their 50s. And almost nobody is delivering both punches. Remain with me because this following segment changes everything. By the way, hit subscribe if you appreciate the content, otherwise YouTube's algorithm may never display my videos again. You believe the threat to your retirement is that you do not have sufficient money saved. The actual threat is that you could possess exactly the correct amount of money saved and still exhaust it before you pass. And the mechanism accountable for that is something called sequence of returns risk. And it is the most undervalued financial danger that exists for people in the decade before and the decade after retirement. Here is the scenario. 2 people, identical age, identical starting balance, identical average return over 30 years, identical withdrawal amount, different outcome. One concludes the simulation with $3 million, the other goes bankrupt at year 26. The sole variable is the order in which the favorable and unfavorable years arrive. Sequence of returns risk is the threat that the timing of investment losses early in retirement will permanently diminish how long your savings endure. Unlike general market risk, sequence risk specifically impacts people who are withdrawing money from their portfolio. When you liquidate investments during a downturn to cover living expenses, those shares are eliminated forever and cannot participate in any recovery. This is worth absorbing for a moment. During your earning years, the order of returns does not matter greatly. A 20% loss followed by a 25% gain yields a comparable result as the reverse because you are not extracting money out. But once withdrawals commence, early losses compound in a manner that later gains simply cannot reverse. Research by Wade Pfau estimates that approximately 77% of a portfolio's final retirement outcome can be explained by the returns of just the initial 10 years. 77%. Let that register. The first decade of retirement is not one chapter among many. It is the dominant determining factor in whether your money endures as long as you do. And your 50s are when you are advancing directly toward that window. Sequence of returns risk is most severe in what researchers label the fragile decade, the 5 years before and 5 years after retirement commences. During this window, the portfolio is typically at its maximum size. A severe market downturn can eliminate years of accumulated gains very rapidly. Unlike during the accumulation phase, there are no future contributions to average down the cost basis. Once withdrawals commence, compounding transitions from working for you to working against you. A man named George, a composite constructed from real case patterns I have examined, not anyone specific, retired in early 2007 with just under $900,000 in his 401k. He was 62. He felt excellent about the figure. His financial advisor informed him he was in solid condition. His plan was to withdraw $40,000 a year to supplement a modest Social Security check. Then 2008 occurred. The S&P 500 plunged 57% from peak to trough. George did not panic sell. He held firm. He did precisely what you were supposed to do. But the withdrawal still occurred. He had to liquidate shares at the bottom to sustain his life. The portfolio recovered in the market, but George's withdrawals meant he was selling at the lows, permanently extracting capital that could not participate in the recovery. By 68, his balance was lower than it had been the day he retired. Not because of his decisions during the crash, because he was at precisely the wrong position in the sequence. Let us suppose you retire with $1 million and plan to withdraw 4% annually. If the market declines 20% in your first year, your portfolio shrinks to $800,000, and your next withdrawal represents a larger percentage of what remains. That snowball effect can compress your retirement horizon by years. This is where most people's reasoning collapses. They assume the solution is to simply select better investments or retain more stocks for higher returns. But the sequence problem is not about the average. It is about the timing. A higher average return with worse timing is actually worse than a lower average return with superior timing. The arithmetic is authentically merciless. The encouraging news is that this risk is not random destiny, it is controllable. But you have to construct the management framework before you require it. Which means now in your 50s, I will demonstrate exactly what that resembles in the mini case study in a few minutes. But first, let me introduce someone. His name is Marcus. He is 54. He has $420,000 in his 401k, a paid-off car, no credit card debt, and a plan to retire at 62. He earns $92,000 a year, has been maxing his contributions for the past 6 years, and sincerely believes he is on track. His friends solicit him for financial guidance at dinner parties. He enjoys providing it. And somewhere around the midpoint of this video, Marcus is going to discover that his plan contains a structural weakness that could cost him 11 years of financial security. Not because he did anything reckless, but because he optimized for the incorrect variable. We will revisit Marcus. Now, Social Security, let us discuss the most misunderstood government program in the history of government programs. Full retirement age is now 67 for anyone born in 1960 or later. Claiming at 62 instead of 67 slashes benefits by 30% for life permanently. Not a temporary modification, not something you can contest, you receive a 30% smaller check every month from the day you claim until the day you pass. If you postpone taking your benefits from your full retirement age up to age 70, your benefit amount will grow and you will accumulate delayed retirement credits that will boost your monthly payment by about 8% per year. Deferring benefits until 70 raises monthly payments by 24% above the standard amount. So let us perform the arithmetic that counts. If your standard benefit at full retirement age is $2,000 a month, which is close to the current average, your choices look like this. Claim at 62, $1,400 a month. Claim at 67, $2,000. Claim at 70, $2,280. That is a disparity of $1,080 per month between claiming at 62 and claiming at 70. Over a 20-year retirement from age 70 to 90. That is $259 to $200 more in lifetime income by waiting 8 years to claim. No investing required, no risk, just patience and a different date on a form. But here is the psychological snare that devastates people. They monitor their account during their 60s and they observe the market fluctuating around. They fret. They think, I should start taking Social Security now while I can. That impulse is exactly backward. Your Social Security benefit is a guaranteed inflation-adjusted annuity backed by the federal government. The COLA for 2026 is 2.8%. It adjusts every year with inflation. You cannot purchase a comparable private product for anything close to what you are surrendering by claiming early. Most people believe the Social Security decision is a question of when to initiate the income stream. It is actually a question of how large a permanent income floor you desire for the remainder of your life. Those are fundamentally different questions with fundamentally different answers. The conventional wisdom suggests to claim early if you need the money, claim late if you do not. That is incorrect. The proper framing is claim late if you can conceivably avoid claiming early because you are purchasing the most affordable inflation-protected longevity insurance that exists. Your other assets carry market risk. Your Social Security benefit, if you wait, does not. There is a woman in Minnesota, I encountered this case in a Morningstar paper, who claimed at 62 because her husband informed her they needed the money to pay down the house. They did not actually need the money, they felt uneasy having the debt. So they permanently reduced her Social Security by 30% for the following 24 years until she passed at 86 in exchange for paying off a mortgage 8 years sooner. The cost of that decision, measured in foregone monthly income over her lifetime, was approximately $212,000. The mortgage they eliminated early was $94,000. They sacrificed over $100,000 in net terms to eliminate a psychological discomfort. The emotion prevailed. The mathematics lost. Here is the reality that nobody else is communicating about the Social Security timing decision. It is also a healthcare planning dilemma. Approximately one-third of early retirees who claim Social Security at age 62 do so to assist in paying for healthcare expenses until they are eligible for Medicare at age 65. So, the decision to claim early is often motivated not by a genuine financial strategy, but by a healthcare gap they did not prepare for. The tail wagging the dog. If you had arranged your healthcare bridge from 62 to 65, you would not need the Social Security check, and you would not be permanently diminishing your income for the next 25 years. I will figure out healthcare when I arrive there. Is not a plan, it is a wish. Let me present you the cutaway I have been holding. Somebody at a gathering, my plan for healthcare before Medicare. I am pretty healthy. The same individual at 64. How does Cobra function again? Back to Marcus. Marcus has been optimizing his 401k. He has been neglecting two things. First, his entire retirement portfolio is in a target date fund set to 2032, which will automatically de-risk, meaning transition toward bonds, starting about 10 years from his anticipated retirement. That sounds reasonable. What Marcus does not realize is that this glide path was not engineered around sequence of returns risk. It was engineered around average volatility reduction. Those are not identical things. A bond tent strategy, increasing bond holdings leading up to and through the early retirement years, then gradually reintroducing equities later, specifically protects portfolios during the vulnerable window. That is different from what his fund accomplishes. Second, Marcus's entire plan hinges on claiming Social Security at 62. He has computed his income based on that figure. He has not modeled the scenario where he works until 65, constructs a 2-year cash buffer, and postpones Social Security to 67 or beyond. He assumes the early claim is logical because I will receive more total checks, but he is presuming he lives to exactly 78. His father lived to 91. Now, let me render this tangible with an actual case study because abstract percentages only extend so far. Meet Dave. He is 52 years old. He has $380,000 in his 401k. He earns $85,000 a year. He plans to retire at 65. He is contemplating claiming Social Security the instant he turns 62. He has no health savings account. He has no cash buffer. Here is what his plan presently resembles. If Dave contributes $23,500 a year starting now, for 13 years at a 7% average return, his existing balance grows to approximately $15,000. His contributions add roughly another $452,000. Total at 65, approximately $1.37 million. That is actually a respectable figure. Dave feels confident. But then the expenditures materialize. Healthcare alone over his retirement, $170, that's $500 per person. That is before his wife. A couple can anticipate needing approximately $345,000 to cover medical expenses in retirement, excluding long-term care. Dave did not account for this, his Social Security at 62. Let us assume his full retirement age benefit at 67 would be $2,200 a month. Claiming at 62 permanently reduces that to $1,140 a month. Over a 23-year retirement to age 85, he receives approximately $425,000 from Social Security. If he works until 65, postpones the claim to 67, his benefit remains at $20,200 a month. Same 20 years, $508,000. He forfeits over $100,000 on the table by claiming early. And that is without even counting the $660 per month difference, compounding over years 67 through 85. Now, the sequence of returns. If Dave retires in a market down year and does not possess a cash buffer, he is compelled to sell shares at depressed prices in year 1 of retirement. Say the market declines 15% in year 1. His $1.37 million becomes $1.16 million before he touches it. He requires $45,000 to live on. He liquidates shares at the low. Now he has $1.115 million. The market recovers, but the shares he liquidated are gone. They do not participate in the recovery. The compounding operates against him. Over 20 years, this single unfortunate timing event, not a poor decision, a poor calendar, could cost Dave between $150,000 and $300,000 in terminal portfolio value, depending on the recovery trajectory. The version of Dave that implements 3 changes, maxes catch-up contributions to $31,000 per year, constructs an 18-month cash buffer before retirement to avoid forced selling in a downturn, and postpones Social Security to 67 or later, ends up with roughly $450,000 more in lifetime income and portfolio stability. Same occupation, same salary, same market returns, different decisions about 3 specific variables. There are precisely 3 levers that count in your 50s, not 12, 3. Contribution rate, specifically maxing catch-up contributions while you still can. Asset allocation glide path, specifically structuring the fragile decade so you are not compelled to sell equities at the bottom when withdrawals commence. And Social Security claiming age, which is actually the most affordable guaranteed income you can acquire. And most people surrender it with a form they completed at 62 because they were anxious. Everything else, the trending stock tips, the real estate crowdfunding apps, the option strategies your brother-in-law references at Thanksgiving, is noise stacked on top of the foundation. Repair the foundation first. I am in my 50s. I can afford to be aggressive. That sentence, uttered with complete sincerity, has terminated more retirement plans than any bear market in history. Aggression at 55 without a sequence of returns buffer is not courage. It is merely an unprotected exposure to a risk that cannot be reversed by time. You are out of the stage of life where time corrects mistakes. A 30% market decline at age 35 and a 30% decline at age 63 are not equivalent events. At 35, you purchase more on the way down. At 63, you sell to eat. Completely different physics. This is where I bring it home. Marcus. Remember Marcus? Marcus runs the figures after a conversation with an actual fee-only financial advisor. Not the variety who gets compensated on commissions, the unexciting variety who charges a flat fee and does not care what you purchase. Marcus discovers he needs to do three things differently. He needs to postpone Social Security to 67 minimum, which means modifying his retire at 62 timeline. He needs to construct a 2-year cash buffer before he ceases working so that he does not access his equity portfolio in a down year. And he needs to redirect 20% of his bond allocation into a more aggressive position for later in retirement, not earlier, to compensate for the growth he requires to sustain withdrawals for potentially 30 years. Marcus still retires. He just retires 2 years later than anticipated, with a structurally robust plan instead of a figure on a page that feels correct. His dinner party friends still solicit him for financial guidance. He provides them slightly different guidance now. Mock financial advisor voice because I cannot resist. Look at 62. You collect the Social Security. Grab the money while you can. The government might not possess it later. Translation. Your advisor is optimizing for the emotional satisfaction of having a check arrive in the mail, not for your actual lifetime income. Those are different optimization objectives. Here are the 3 things you execute with the information in this video. First, if you are 50 or older, and you are not maxing your catch-up contributions to your 401k, all $31,000 per year or $34,750 if you are 60 to 63, you are leaving the most tax-efficient accumulation window of your life unutilized. This is not aspirational. This is the mathematics of the catch-up window that closes the instant you retire. It is the final time the government provides you a lever this powerful. Employ it. Second, construct a cash buffer of 18 to 24 months of living expenses before you retire and maintain it completely separate from your investment portfolio. This is your sequence of return shield. Maintaining 1 to 3 years of living expenses in cash or short-term bonds means you do not have to liquidate investments during a downturn. This provides your portfolio time to recover without locking in losses. It is the simplest defense against the largest structural danger to your retirement, and it costs you almost nothing in terms of lifetime return. Third, do not claim Social Security before you have exhausted every option to postpone it. Run the break-even. Calculate the lifetime income disparity. Factor in your health, your family longevity history, and whether your spouse will benefit from your higher earning record. The difference between claiming at 62 and 67 can surpass $100,000 in lifetime income over a lengthy retirement. That is not insignificant. That is a vehicle or a decade of travel or the peace of mind of never questioning if you miscalculated. Lazy investing constructed more fortunes than crypto memes. And the most difficult part is that none of this requires you to be brilliant. It requires you to be patient in a system that constantly makes patience feel counterproductive.